Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my nightmare neighbor freaks out when I refuse to give him my house for free and ends up demolishing my beautiful home while I am away. Here is what happened. And if you haven't already, please check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms. Thank you so much. Let me start this off with a bit of context. 5 years ago, I moved to the United States from Japan. I very quickly was able to get a job at the local hospital and have now been a doctor there for a year and a half. Quite soon I was able to get a mortgage on a rather nice house in a pleasant street. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, so it's decently big. I moved in with my girlfriend who I met in my first year of university over here. I thought the house would be perfect if we ever decided to start a family together. Not long after moving in, we started having issues with our neighbor. "You need to trim this hedge," was the very first thing he said to me 2 weeks after we had moved in. "Sorry?" I replied, not knowing who he was at this point. "That hedge, it's yours, yeah? Trim it, it's blocking the path," he explained with a deep sigh and walked off while looking back at me with a grimace on his face. I looked over at the hedge in question and saw that it was barely spilling into the path. The estate agent had paid to have it cut a couple of weeks ago, so I really wasn't sure what he was complaining about. I watched as he walked into the house next door and realized that he was my neighbor. I already had a bad feeling that he would be causing trouble, but I could only hope all would be okay. A couple months into living there and the troubles between us grew, every little thing would be picked up and become the focus of the next problem he had with us. It was not long before we realized the reason he was acting this way. "Hurry up! I'm trying to get into my driveway," he yelled one afternoon from his car as we were walking across the pavement in front of his house. Me and my girlfriend quickly hurried across. Our neighbor, who we learned was called Barry, drove his car on the driveway and quickly got out. "It's bad enough you're living next door, you don't get in my way as well," he seethed, storming over to his house. "What do you mean, bad enough I'm living next door? You must have had neighbors before us," I replied, fed up of his attitude. He let out a strained laugh before replying, "Yeah, but certainly none like you." Me and my girlfriend Sarah looked at each other, slightly confused, but I knew what he meant. He was clearly racist and it explained a lot. At least there would be a chance if he did anything too extreme, I could report it as a hate crime. I figured Sarah had also realized why Barry was being how he was, but I didn't bring it up with her anyway. In an odd turn of events, another couple of months down the line, a boy moved in with Barry. He looked to be in his teens. "My son has moved in with me, so he will be using your backyard to practice football," Barry stated one afternoon as I was walking over to my house. "What? No, he's not. That's our garden," I replied, utterly shocked. "I don't think you get a say in this. It's bad enough that you have come here and taken one of our houses. You owe us your garden at least." I could see that he was getting angry by the way the veins appeared on his forehead. "What?" was all I could say in return, having never dealt with anyone so blatantly racist in my life. He turned around and stormed away while repeating what he had just been saying. I stood there in shock for a while before going back inside. Later that day, I heard something hit the house and looked outside my window to see that the boy was in our garden kicking his ball against a wall. "Hey, I'm sorry, but you cannot do that here," I called down. "What? My dad said you said it was okay," the boy replied, looking genuinely confused. "Unfortunately not," I responded. "Oh well, I'm sorry I bothered you, sir." The boy picked up his ball and rushed inside. I was impressed with how mature he was given the attitude of his father, but given he had only just moved in, I assume he was not raised by him. Barry came around and banged on the door minutes later with his son behind him begging him not to start anything. He ended up yelling at me with more racist things. My girlfriend was behind me and I was ashamed that she had to hear it all. I ended up threatening to call the cops if he did not leave. So he did, leaving his son to give some sort of apology, which I of course stopped him doing. After all, it's not his fault. The next day, Barry came around again. "What is it this time?" I asked with a sigh. "My son is almost 18. For his birthday, he deserves a house for himself, and I think it should be this one," he stated. I stared at him for a few minutes in a trance at the audacity of the statement. Was he saying that I should give him my house? "Well, you're not having this house if that's what you're asking," I replied. Why not? He's turning 18. He needs to live on his own. Give him your house. He deserves it more than you. He's an American citizen, Barry ranted. Firstly, I'm also an American citizen. And secondly, I bought this house with my own money. So go to the estate agent if you have an issue with who they sold it to. And finally, he's only just moved in. Why are you kicking him out already? It's none of your business. Don't be so rude. And I don't care if you bought this house. I'll be having it. No, you won't. Fine, I'll pay you $5,000 for it. I started to laugh. Are you insane? You must know it cost much more than that, and it's not for sale. You will regret this, Barry stated and stormed off. I walked back inside and told my girlfriend what had happened, who was still upstairs. We both laughed about the absolute audacity of the man. 2 weeks later, and me and my girlfriend were all packed up and ready to go on a holiday. We had heard nothing from Barry since the last encounter, so we were planning to get out of town as soon as possible, as we didn't want to risk seeing him and having a sour start to our getaway. The holiday was lovely, but that's not important. So now what happened while we were away is what will be the kicker. We turned the corner to our house as we were on the way back, and I could not have slammed on the brakes faster than I did. Where our house used to be was a pile of rubble and broken pillars. We dashed out of the car and I ran over to Barry's house knowing he had something to do with this and stormed in the door, which was thankfully unlocked. "What did you do?" I yelled at Barry once I saw him, resisting the urge to strangle him. "I told you you would regret not giving me the house, so I called some of my buddies in the demolition industry to do me a favor," he responded with a shrug. I ran back outside knowing if I stayed any longer, I would probably punch him. "Dad, you said they moved out. How could you?" I heard Barry's son talking to him. What I heard next sounded like a punch and I ran back inside to find the boy on the ground. I cornered Barry and grabbed his head, smashing it against a wall, knocking him out. I went over to his son and helped him up before taking him outside and calling the cops. It was a messy situation to sort out. I took Barry to court and very easily won, given the local surveillance cameras caught everything. I won $680,000, which more than covers the damages to the house, and he also ended up in jail for what he did. As well as the abuse to his son, which turns out was more than just that one punch. And by the way, Ripe Stars, to be honest, I was kind of surprised that in the end, OP did not really talk about what happened to the son of this terrible neighbor. So what I did was I contacted OP, aka writing him a private message, and unfortunately I didn't get an answer for almost half a year. Because I actually wanted to post this story a long time ago, but just recently I got an answer from OP. I couldn't say that the answer was super satisfying, to be honest with you guys, but at least he said that CPS took care of the kid and he now has found a new family. To be honest, I would have loved if OP could have taken in the kid or something, but that is apparently not what happened. Either way, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment, because that would help me tremendously. Anyway, the next one is titled HOA tries to fine me for having a vegetable garden. So I have always loved gardening. Ever since I was a little girl, I've had dreams of having my own beautiful vegetable garden one day. There's just something so rewarding about planting seeds in the dirt, nurturing them carefully, and watching new green sprouts emerge from the soil. So when my husband Tom and I bought our cozy little house with a decent sized backyard, I was thrilled that I'd finally have space for my long-awaited garden. On weekends, Tom and I discussed plans as we sketched garden plots on graph paper. I decided to start small with just a few tomato plants and herbs, making sure not to go overboard in my excitement. On a sunny Saturday morning, Tom helped me mark off a 5x5 foot plot along the back fence and assemble a cute miniature white picket fence around it. We amended the soil with compost and planted 3 tiny tomato seedlings I had started indoors along with basil, oregano and chives. It was so exciting to see those first green sprouts poking up a few weeks later. I was absolutely hooked. As the tomato vines grew long and flowers bloomed, I quickly expanded the garden plot, adding more vegetables like cucumbers, beans, lettuce and bell peppers. Tom built a bigger fence around the now decent-sized 15x15 foot garden plot. I repurposed an old tool shed into storage space for all my new gardening tools and supplies. We installed a drip irrigation system on a timer to make watering easy when I was at work. By the end of summer, my flourishing garden was producing more juicy tomatoes, cucumbers and peppers than Tom and I could eat ourselves. I started bringing the extras into my office to share with coworkers, and I also began canning tomato sauce and pickles to enjoy all winter long. Gardening quickly became my favorite hobby. I would spend hours every evening and weekend morning out there pruning, weeding, and enjoying the sights and smells. It was my own little slice of heaven. Well, that perfect paradise was shattered one Saturday when Tom brought in the mail. There was an official letter bearing the neighborhood HOA emblem. I opened it to find a stern notice stating that I was in violation of multiple HOA landscaping rules regarding my unsightly garden plot. I was shocked and confused. Our house did not even belong to the HOA. The rule book they had sent over clearly stated that the HOA boundaries only covered a portion of the street. Our house fell just outside those boundaries according to the map. The letter went on to describe numerous required changes and improvements to bring my garden up to code or else face growing fines. There were limitations on garden sizes, restrictions on types of fences and edging allowed, and prohibitions on any unsightly debris being visible, meaning all my garden tools and supplies in the shed. I called the HOA offices immediately to clear up what had to be a mistake. Hello, I received a notice of violation about my vegetable garden, but my property does not even belong to the HOA, I explained. Oh yes, you have quite an unsightly mess back there, the manager replied rudely. The HOA-approved designs are available on our website. You have 2 weeks to correct the violations before fines are issued. But there has to be some misunderstanding here, I continued. Our house is clearly outside the HOA boundaries. Doesn't matter, he barked. The HOA rules supersede individual property lines in order to maintain consistent neighborhood standards. All residents on this street are subject to HOA rules, no exceptions. I was incredulous. That makes no sense. We purposely bought a house that was not part of the HOA. You cannot just randomly decide your rules apply to our private property. Read the bylaws, lady. All residents on HOA streets must comply for the good of the community, he argued. End of discussion. I was shaking as I hung up the phone. How could they do this? I had worked so hard on my garden, only for them to threaten me over some technicalities. And worse, threaten us with fines for violating rules we never agreed to. Tom and I pored over the letter and rulebook but couldn't make sense of it. We decided we needed professional help and called Mark, Tom's college buddy, who was a real estate attorney. Mark came over that evening to review everything. Yeah, this is crazy, he agreed. Your house falls completely outside their boundaries according to the HOA map. They cannot enforce these rules on you. He volunteered to write them a strongly worded letter on his law office letterhead disputing their claims. But a week later, the HOA attorney wrote back with pages of convoluted legalese arguing the validity of their rules on any street with partial HOA membership. Mark helped us officially file a document with the county clerk affirming our property was non-HOA. This proves they have no jurisdiction, Mark explained. If they keep harassing you, we will threaten legal action. A month went by without incident, and then one day I arrived home from work to find an official notice taped to my front door. The HOA had sent someone to inspect and was fining us $300 for our non-compliant fence and garden. Livid, I called the officers again. I thought this was settled, I said. Our property doesn't belong to the HOA. You even have county documents confirming that. Doesn't matter, the manager said smugly. We have every right to maintain consistent standards. The fine stands unless changes are made. I had enough at that point. I immediately gave Mark the green light to start legal proceedings against the HOA for harassment. Over the next few months, the HOA inundated us with threatening letters and notices imposing ridiculous escalating fines for the continued garden violations. It took us almost a year before we finally had our court date to present our case before a judge. Mark showed the HOA bylaws clearly delineating the boundaries that excluded our property. Also, the county clerk documents affirming we were not HOA members. This is an outrageous overextension of power, Mark argued. The HOA has systematically harassed my clients and illegally imposed fines on their private property where they have no jurisdiction. It felt like sweet justice when the judge agreed and not only threw out their fines but ordered the HOA to reimburse us for all legal costs accrued fighting them. As we celebrated victory over dinner that night, I raised my glass. Here is to many more years of happy gardening, I declared. The HOA learned the hard way that they cannot bully us into giving up my gardening passion. My vegetable garden can finally grow in peace. And yeah, ripe stars, don't you just love to see it when the HOA gets what they deserve? Seriously, more people need to stand up against HOAs and not let them bully innocent people. Because if you don't stand up now, who knows who they will hit next? Maybe next time it is your neighbor, and then the next time it might be yourself. Either way, the next one is titled Toddler Kid Revenge. This happened a long while back one summer. I had friends in a very nice closed neighborhood gated community. One day, as I was riding my bike to my friend's house, I saw the owner of an award-winning lawn in a prestigious neighborhood that yelled and almost kicked at this toddler who accidentally fell off his new training bike while out walking with his young mother. The kid had barely fallen a few inches onto the lawn. Poor kid was shaking, and to make matters worse, the dog of lawn owner Prick was trained to snap at anyone approaching the lawn. So toddler begins to cry, still sitting on the lawn, as the mother picks him up. Lawn owner man baby screams profanities at her almost inches from her face, and I swear you could hear some spit hit the mom and the child the way they were terrified and leaning away from the lawn owner's face. So honestly, the guy's lawn would impress a golf course for millionaires. It was nice, the one with the best lawn would get to park in the first spot at the country club and swimming pool lot. Yeah, it was that kind of neighborhood, and yeah, we could see him boast about it at community events. A week later, when I was out still playing with my friends Tyler and Logan around 10:30 at night. As we passed the lawn man's house, I told them about the entitled lawn man and what he did to that poor mom and child. My best buddy Tyler gets this look of, oh hell no. His mom had recently divorced an abusive guy. Tyler tells us to follow him and proceeds to get birdseed from their pet parakeet's cage. The next day we were playing at Tyler's house when we heard the lawn man yelling profanities again. We ran out front and saw this guy was pissed. The neighborhood birds were causing the lawn guy's dog to go into a frenzy as the birds had discovered these amazingly tasty fresh seeds. Lawn man had come outside with an extension cord and was trying to vacuum the seeds up. Back at Tyler's house, we reenacted the scenes Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the VHS days, with Lawn Man as the guy trying to save his precious grass. The judging of the lawns was a week or so later, but the damage had been done. There was random little shoots of life causing all sorts of new colors of nature that would make Trump's nightmares come true had they grown to their full potential. Little Groots, I like to think of them now. And Lawn Lazy Potbelly Man lost the little award sign he had displayed at the edge of his lawn for almost 3 years. A week later we saw that his lawn had been removed and a new black weed control covering was being laid out for the new grass sod that was coming in. You should have seen the look on Tyler's face. His eyes had that look of unfinished mischief. Hey mom, can we go to the pet store? And yeah, ripe stars, that is certainly a good type of petty revenge for an entitled busybody neighbor. By the way, if you guys know, what do you call these neighbors that basically cut their lawn with a scissor? Where I'm from, we have a specific word for this, but I'm not sure if that also exists in English. But it's basically a meme or a joke about people that care about the look of their house and in general how they appear to other people so much that they even cut their lawn with scissors. Either way, the next one is titled, Am I the Jerk Here? I, 20 female, share an apartment with Casey, 24 male, Nelly, 19 female, and Hannah, 21 female, along with Hannah's 8-month-old daughter. The issue at hand concerns our neighbors. John, 30 male, and his wife Jane, 25 female, have a set of twins that are a year old. So sometimes Hannah and they will have a playdate with the younger ones, but recently they've been using the playdates as a way to dump their kids on Hannah and the rest of us, sometimes for hours without answering the phone. Now, I love kids and would be more than happy to babysit them, but we are all either working in college or both. So more often we have either been late to class or work because we cannot contact John or Jane. Yesterday, the 4 of us were preparing to go out for lunch and get some shopping done, and as we were leaving, John stopped us and said he needed Hannah to watch his kids while he went out to see a movie. I told him we are not babysitters, and if they leave the kid with us again without answering, we would call social services, to which they called us a bunch of spineless leeches. The other parents in the complex said that we were harsh to new parents and to have more compassion. Comment number 1, not the a-hole, the neighbors are being the a-holes. Hannah is a new parent too. Anyone saying you need more compassion and to be less harsh is welcome to and should go randomly get taken advantage of to watch the kids for hours with no notice. That's ridiculous. You did great attending up politely and clearly for your group. Comment number 2. Damn, lol at the other parents in the complex calling them new parents. What's Hannah then? Also, I bet all the other parents are older than you guys and thought they could exploit you because of that. Good on you for shutting that down, not the a-hole. And yeah, ripe stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think that OP is the a-hole or not? Also, we got an update to the story. Update, we called CPS on John and Jane. We've also agreed to avoid them and not answer the door if it is them. Finally, we plan on moving soon since our lease is up soon. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.